Hey, it's your old pal Lucid Stu again, and this is Stu's News, a review of American high-speed rail happenings over the last month. In this February 2026 episode, we'll take a look at what went down in January. Starting off with Acela, the NEC, and the biggest news of the month, the Gateway Program Commission announced that they may need to pause construction on the Hudson Tunnel project, which plans to build 2 new rail tunnels between New Jersey and New York City under the North River unless the Trump administration restarts disbursement of the roughly $12 billion promised to the project by Congress. The reason for the holdup given by the Trump administration is something about DEI, but it's typical political football stuff. Is it to spite the likes of Senators Chuck Schumer and Cory Booker? Is it to try to squeeze New York City into dropping congestion pricing? Is it leverage to get New York and New Jersey to pay for Trump's New York Penn Station pet project? Let me know what you think in the comments. Even though construction there could cease as early as February 6th, construction is currently moving right along, with the Gateway Commission returning to their more regular updating ways on X. One recently announced development was a breakthrough into the already built tunnels which lead to New York Penn from the Hudson Yards concrete casing project. That project will connect those tunnels with the yet-to-be-built tunnels that would emerge from under the North River. At least it appears a government shutdown is less of a factor this time around, but we'll see. Speaking of New York Penn Station, potential master developers have been whittled down to 3. Despite indicating that a final selection would be made in May and made public in June of this year, there are hints that the administration may not issue a request for proposal. This brings into question the requirements, the process, and the legitimacy of that final decision, but it hasn't been made yet, so once again, we'll see. More New York Penn related news. Amtrak announced that Empire service from New York Penn to upstate New York would return to normal in March of 2026. Its schedule was truncated due to work on Amtrak's East River Tunnel rehab project. Amtrak has somehow found the equipment and scheduling to reverse that decision. It appears the move may have been in response to MTA North's plan to run a daily train from New York City to Albany to make up for that shortfall, as Amtrak also announced that daily train would no longer be sanctioned. Amtrak had a board meeting in July with some general NEC goodies. They're planning to conditionally approve 9 more next-gen Acela train sets for service by now. They've had some difficulties with cancellations lately due to lack of equipment. This should alleviate some of that problem. Cutover of the first track of the Portal North Bridge in New Jersey will begin on February 13th and last until March 16th. During that time, the physical connection will be finalized and they will test and commission the new track over the Hackensack. This will result in a 50% reduction in service for Amtrak and NJ Transit during that time. Amtrak will cut a second track over about 6 months later with a similar routine. The Portal North Bridge replaces the old movable bridge with a fixed span, increasing speed and reliability through the area. Along the same lines, trips on the NEC through the Bronx will face a 20% service reduction as MTA and Amtrak work to replace a bridge over East Chester Road and perform some work related to an interlocking in the area as part of work on the East Side Access Project. This is a project that would provide MTA North with access to New York Penn Station through a new track and 4 new stations on the NEC. Also NEC adjacent, just south of Washington Union Station, the Virginia Passenger Rail Association has begun work on the Long Bridge project. That will affect Amtrak traffic between Washington, D.C. and Virginia, with morning service being cut through 2031. That service will be replaced by bus service. The Long Bridge project will build a new 2-track bridge across the Potomac, doubling the throughput for freight and intercity passenger rail to and from Washington, D.C. and the South. Now let's look at the monthly Amtrak reports. Keep in mind these reports run a month behind, and this one is for December fiscal year 2026. Down across the board month over month, Amtrak is seasonal on the NEC, but generally December isn't affected by that. Year over year also down slightly thanks to underperformance by Northeast Regional. Acela was up a little bit in both revenue and operating earnings. Amtrak warned during the board meeting that the carrier might struggle a bit in the remains of the fiscal year. That'll do it for Acela and the NEC, but we'll stick with the East Coast and check out Brightline in Florida. More financial problems as the company elected to defer one of its bond interest payments for the second time. Third time is a charm in terms of default. Fitch announced more bond downgrades, this time as low as a CC rating for Brightline East senior secured taxable notes. CC is Fitch's third lowest rating out of 20. They joined S&P in assessing default to be possible in the first half of 2027. Brightline indicates that they are currently pursuing issuance of equity. They offer no details, but this could be some sort of private stock offering. I haven't heard any news of a public offering of any kind. The intent there would be to use the proceeds to pay off some of their more stubborn debt and gain some breathing room. Default and/or bankruptcy is looking increasingly likely, but they have roughly a year to figure it out, so don't head for the parking lot just yet. In response to ongoing trouble, Brightline has announced a new CEO of Brightline Holdings, Nicholas Petrovich. Petrovich is the former CEO of Eurostar, a European high-speed rail operator. Former CEO of Brightline Holdings, Michael Reininger, has been shifted to Brightline West to concentrate on that project. With that, let's take a look at Brightline's December 2025 numbers. Pretty standard stuff for 2025, up about 13 or 14% from 2024. The lack of acceleration in growth is not encouraging for Brightline's long-term prospects, as they need about 50% more revenue than they had in 2024 for their current business model to be sustainable. Some interesting detail: long-distance ridership was flat, but with 10% higher ticket prices on average. Short-distance ridership was up, while quite a bit cheaper on ticket prices. All of this as Brightline figures out how to increase ridership and optimize revenue. Lastly, according to Brightline, its final 5 Siemens Venture coaches were received, and those premium class carriages are now in service. That's all for Brightline. On our way west, let's stop in at Alabama.
Alabama!
Birmingham Mayor Randall Woodfin is proposing high-speed rail from there to Atlanta. The idea was light on details, but GDOT has studied this previously and found that such a system along Interstate 20 would make the trip in about an hour and 20 minutes, with an inflation-adjusted cost of about $20 billion. Nothing else on that, but it's something to keep an eye on. Let's continue on to the west, but this time we'll stop by our old friend, the Chicago Hub Network. The Illinois High-Speed Rail Commission met again and talked about some interesting things. They went over routes and early cost estimates. One thing I want to touch on real quick is the cost estimates and the contingency they're adding. That's 50% contingency and then 20% more on top of that, for a total of 80% over standard FRA estimates. That indicates quite a bit of uncertainty. Lately in my videos, I've been adding 60% onto my previous methodology. No one here is pulling numbers out of thin air. Our best guidance in the US is California High-Speed Rail, which of course is in construction, and Brightline West, which is at 100% design. Both of those projects have raised their estimates recently, and combined, those projects are up about 60 to 65% over estimates from the last couple of years. Both of those projects have cited increased competition due to the huge increase in data center build-out in terms of materials and access to companies that take on large projects. That said, I think the Illinois High-Speed Rail consultants end up a little on the high side due to this generous contingency, but only time will tell. Right now they're looking at a dozen routing options of various configuration and service. There are mixtures of greenfield routes, highway adjacent, and freeway median running. As I explored in this video, freeway running isn't a great choice in Illinois except for I-55 between Springfield and East St. Louis, which isn't that bad. They're also considering tilting trains, which hopefully falls by the wayside. You're mainly going to use a tilting train on routes that aren't great high-speed rail routes, and why would you intentionally build a bad high-speed rail route? 2 routes were highlighted in the meeting, Route 4 and Route 12. These are similar. The The location of the terminal in Chicago isn't clear. It might be Chicago Union. They've also mentioned the area around 11th Street on the Metro Electric line. They would take Metro Electric out of the Chicago area to University Park, where Metro Electric currently ends. Then south on new right-of-way through or near Champaign-Urbana and Decatur to Springfield, the state capital. Route 4 would continue on new routing from Springfield to East St. Louis. Route 12 would utilize the Interstate 55 median there. The terminal in East St. Louis would be next to I-55 between downtown and the DraftKings Casino on the river. It would also be next to St. Louis Metrolink lines, where passengers could transfer to that and take it over the river into St. Louis, Missouri. Route 4 has an estimated cost between $44 and $54 billion and an end-to-end travel time of 2 hours 22 minutes. Route 12 would be $39 to $49 billion at a time of 2 hours 30 minutes. That would also be a tilter. Additionally, in my opinion, they should consider running a conventional train in the median there, because Interstate 55 isn't bad in those terms. In videos I've made previously, I've had time from Chicago to St. Louis between 2 hours and 3 hours 13 minutes at an adjusted cost of $37 to $51 billion. There was a question in that meeting from your other old pal Rick Harnish of the High Speed Rail Alliance about getting time down to 2 hours, and it was indicated that the difficulty there is the Chicago metro area. All that said, the state is very far off from choosing a definitive route and actually building it. It looks like the commission will wrap things up by summer, sending their analysis off to the state government, and then we'll have to see what comes next. Can Illinois afford a $50 billion high-speed rail line? Let me know in the comments. Moving on from our old friend and to California, let's first start with Brightline West. You may have heard that Brightline West has a new opening date, late 2029. Nah, not really. It's been late 2029 for months, and it's also not opening in 2029 because it's a 4-year project and they haven't started work in the I-15 median anywhere. You're looking at 2030 at the earliest there. Given the amount of delays, 2030 is also likely optimistic. When they make it into the I-15 median in Nevada, we'll have a lot better idea of when they'll get done. Now, they have done some construction, as I have covered personally. That's mainly at the Las Vegas area station site. Brightline West has put up a video about that with lots of great footage, some of that from since I was out there last. Go check it out, see what they're up to, link in the card and description. And now California High Speed Rail. Last this time, but certainly not least, California High Speed Rail is proposing to move its Merced station out of downtown to an unincorporated area near Mission Avenue and State Route 99, saying this would save the project $1 billion. The response by the Merced City Council is that they want more details and want to work closely with California High Speed Rail to figure out a solution. I have some theories about this. I'll share them soon in a dedicated video. The main takeaway for anyone living in Merced is that there's a solid chance now that the in and out on MLK and 15th is safe from destruction. You may have heard that the federal government is cutting California High Speed Rail off from federal funding permanently, but unfortunately this is just another example of legacy media not doing their homework. The appropriations bill that recently passed the House and Senate includes a clause about California High Speed Rail funding, and it does bar it permanently. However, this only pertains to a $930 million grant from 2010 that is part of the $4 billion in federal grants that the state just gave up on, so there's really not a story here. With that, let's check out the Central Valley reports. Capital outlay budget summary, $164 million for the month. That's better, but still too low. Just to hit the budgeted amount, they should be spending $225 million a month. For structures and guideway progress, I want to show you these schedule projection charts because they change them as they go. This is current as of November 2025. Keep in mind these run 2 months behind. And this one is for August of 2025. You can see that the work has piled up. Guideway completion in particular is about 1/3 behind schedule. Can they clear out the extra work in time? Let me know in the comments. My opinion is that substantial completion of the civil works for CPs 1 through 4 is going to run into 2027, and delays mean budget overages when they already don't have enough money. Speaking of that, you won't find it in these charts, but at the last board meeting, the authority approved a change order on CPs 2-3 for $537 million that wiped out 15% of their contingency in one fell swoop. As far as delays go, let's look at the CP1 earned value chart. If we draw a trend line here, they wind up completing that about 6 months behind this schedule, which would be mid-2027. Okay, I know you're tired of the doom and gloom. Let's look at a bright spot. Real property acquisition is finally, after nearly 12 years, done for this section. They still have a few railroad properties to acquire, but it doesn't look like those will cause any further delay. Utility relocations gave them a hard time because there were 1,826 of them in this 119-mile stretch. They now have initiated all but 6% of those, and 90% of the 1,826 are done. To be fair, the California High-Speed Rail Authority recently released its Winter Project Update video. Go check that out as well. You've seen the images, you know it's being built, but the problem is that it's just not being built fast enough, which causes apparently no amount of static funding to be enough. And lastly, let's go over the plan for the years ahead. They have track laying starting near Shafter in the fourth quarter of this year, 2026. Work on a second railhead up by Fresno should start around the same time. Track laying is supposed to be done for the first 119 miles by the third quarter of 2028, with overhead contact systems done 3 months later. All benchmarks we can keep track of. Will they keep to this schedule? We already know track laying is 6 months later than they were talking about last year. Let me know in the comments. That's all for California High-Speed Rail. Now it's time for Stu's Boo-Boos, where I go over everything I missed or got wrong last month. Hey there, no boo-boos! That means your gold star total for spotted boo-boos stays at 27, silver stars for me for a boo-boo free month up to 11. You know what that means next month. As always, if you find a boo-boo in this presentation or something I missed, let me know in the comments. If it's a good one, you win a prize. A special thanks to the Stu Crew Discord channel for all of their help. If you'd like to join our motley crew, check out the invite in the description. A couple of extra ways you can help out the channel. Check out that Super Thanks button below the video. All Super Thanks will go toward one of the new Amtrak tracksuits. I'm kidding. I also have a railroad poster store. I have a new poster available for all you Chicago Hub fans, so go check it out. Plenty more videos to come. Something a little different is coming soon, and then I will probably make a video about my theory about what's going on with California High-Speed Rail in Merced. But that's all for now. Until next time, I'll see you on that big, beautiful freeway.